Welcome back to an episode of the Nicocast. Today we have Danny Miranda. This man is one of the goats of the podcasting game. So, let's get straight into it, Danny. You started a competitor to the New York Times called the Sunny Times at 6 years old because you felt called to do it. That's very similar to me because I also started my YouTube channel at that age. So, tell us a story about the Sunny Times.
Yeah, the Sunny Times started because, first of all, it's so great to be here with you, and I'm so honored to spend time with somebody who is putting themselves out there on the internet at such a young age. That's a really special thing, and
Thank you.
obviously I see myself in you, so it's really cool to experience this on the other side of the mic. But the Sunny Times was this vision I had to take over the New York Times. And it was a vision I had because I saw my parents create, or rather, I saw them read the New York Times, and I saw how much they loved it. And I said to myself, I'd like to create something like that. So I got together with a friend, typed it up, created a newsletter, and I just started publishing these episodes. And it was such a special thing to just fuel something that I felt like should be in the world. And that was, I don't know how many issues I did, maybe 10, maybe 20, something like that. But I think it's the lesson in it is like, for where I'm at now of being 28 years old, it's like find the things in your past that can give you a spark to your future. I created the Sunny Times just because I enjoyed doing it, not for any validation from anyone else, maybe my parents, honestly, but because I enjoyed writing. And so I think that that's a good place to start if you're having trouble figuring out where you're supposed to go in life. It's like, look at the things you're doing when you're 8 or 9 or 10 just for the sake of doing it.
Yeah, I also think doing things for their own sake and because you enjoy them is very important. That's, the best way to create and how I think people should create whatever, like a video, podcast, write.
It's so pure when it comes from that place.
Yeah.
There's a real purity to it.
How are you publishing the Sunny Times at 6 years old? Where were you publishing it, uploading it? Like, how was it?
Yeah, that was a printed out edition of a newsletter. That was almost like a newspaper. I think it was like 2008 that I started doing that, or maybe earlier, 2006
Wow.
might have been. Maybe it was 2004. I don't remember the exact date to it, but I know that it just was in me to spread light and have it come through me. And that's what the purpose of the Sunny Time was, not to cover the politics, or I maybe included politics, but just to create light and put light into the world.
Let's skip a couple of years. You're now 13, and you lived by the motto, if you're too young to do something, don't worry. You'll soon be too old. What made you resonate with that at age 13?
Yeah, I don't know what made me resonate with it at 13. It's crazy how fast time goes and what 15 years actually feels like. But I just know I was the type of kid who felt like I could do anything. I felt like if I put my mind to it, I'd be able to get it done and I'd be able to accomplish it. And I don't know if that necessarily was true, but it's what I believed at the time. And I really wanted to inspire people. And so that was part of my mission at that age, just to inspire people and show people what was possible.
Just believing you can do it is enough.
Sometimes. And sometimes it's not enough, and that's okay too.
Yeah. So at that age, you had like a blog called Command Your Time.
Yeah.
And it was a blog on how to be happy and time management tips. So what made you feel like you could give people those tips at age 13? I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I'm not sure what made me feel like I could give those tips at 13. Just that I wanted to spread happiness and I wanted to write online, and I felt like online was where the future was going. And it was 2008 and I didn't see a lot of people creating blogs, but I felt like there were some people who were creating blogs, and I thought it'd be a pretty cool career to be a blogger for a lifetime. Yeah. Like Darren Rouse was one of my mentors at the time, or Gary Vaynerchuk. So yeah, I was inspired by the people who were building their careers online, and I wanted to be one of those people.
Yeah, so you were doing it with the intent to hopefully one day turn into like a job, career, or just from the heart maybe.
Yeah, it was both. It was like, let me go from the heart, and maybe one day this could be a career.
That's amazing. Yeah, at that age, that's probably the best way to, my age. That's probably like the best way to look at things. Do them for the sake of it, and if it turns into like a job or like opportunity later on, well, perfect.
Yeah, it's pure when it comes from that place.
Yeah. So, do you remember like what exactly you were like publishing? Like, what was the topics you were talking about?
It was a lot on happiness. It was a lot. You can live a happier life by virtue of following some of these principles and ideas. And it was just really cool to talk about or to look back on, because I talk about a lot of that same stuff today. Same ideas, just happiness. Like, what are we here on this floating rock in space for? Let's start with understanding our own minds and how they work.
Yes.
Right? Seems like a pretty important thing to do. Seems like a base level, almost human need at some point. It's like, understand how your mind works. So I think I understood that at a young age, and I wanted to help people with that as well.
How did you understand that at such a young age? What was the thing that made you understand it? Was there a specific thing, or did it just come like naturally?
Yeah, I think a lot of it came naturally to me. I mean, there was a lot that I needed to let go of, or there was a lot I needed to understand at that age that I didn't really have full understanding of, why I was so happy and what really makes for true happiness and what makes for true inner peace. But that definitely I definitely had a good base level of happiness from my parents and understanding from them. And I was doing a lot of reading like you. I was just reading all the time. So through books and blogs and thinking about life, I was a different type of kid, than most. And I assume you can relate to that.
Yeah, kind of. That's how you learn, from reading, thinking. Those are the ways to discover more about yourself.
Yeah. So, yeah, to answer your question, it was like I had a base level understanding of my mind and of happiness, and I had ideas on how to make people happier, but they were theories at that point, as opposed to a little bit more in practicality today.
How similar do you see Command Your Time to your current podcast?
I think it's an extension of it. I think they're very similar. And I think that I'm just using the medium of the day to deliver the message of light.
Yeah. Do you remember how long Command Your Time lasted?
Yeah, it was like a 6-month journey, or 3 to 6 months, something like that. And I stopped doing it because a woman commented a blog post saying that a 13-year-old kid shouldn't be online, or it wasn't a 13-year-old kid to begin with. And I was like, I think she's right. At first I got upset by it, and then I was like, if I really want to, I can become a blogger later on in my life. I don't need to do it right now. And there is a real value to being a child, and I understood that. And there's also a value to being a successful blogger at 16 or 17 or 18 as well. So it was just a decision I made. I don't know if it's the right one, but I was certainly at peace with it. And I was grateful for her for commenting that, because it took the pressure off me to be anything other than just what I was at the time. And I was grateful for that.
Yeah,
grateful for that in hindsight, not grateful for that in the moment.
Yeah. I was just about to ask if you think that was the correct decision. So, do you regret it, or what do you right now looking at it now? What do you think of it? Do you think it was the correct decision? Do you regret it?
To stop blogging?
Yeah, because of that comment.
Yeah, I would say it was the correct decision for me, because I wasn't disciplined enough. I wasn't able to stick through on my word for long enough to make the blog into a business. Like I didn't have those skills yet. I didn't know. I didn't know how to do that. So I'm really grateful that I made that decision. I'm grateful to be a normal kid for some time and then go do a Knicks blog, and then, I'm grateful for it all.
Yeah. Don't you think maybe you would have discovered that all later? And, how do you think your life would look if you never got that comment and would have continued blogging?
If I would have blogged for long enough, I would have eventually got that comment. Someone would have commented something that I wouldn't have liked, which would have made me stop because I didn't look at myself.
Yeah, it's inevitable. If you're creating content, you're going to get hate comments. If you're not getting hate comments, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
Honestly. So, yeah.
And the key point in that is I didn't know to look at myself.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at yourself and looking at the things you're insecure about are actually the key to your freedom. Looking at your insecurities are actually the key to your freedom. So I was insecure that I was blogging as a 13. I don't know what I was insecure about as a 13-year-old. Maybe it was that I was blogging. Maybe that I was a weird kid doing something not normal. But I was insecure about something. And I didn't know that if I looked at it, I would be free from it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was able to speak that out loud to someone, I'd be free from it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question becomes, what are you not willing to speak out loud? That is actually the key to your freedom. The thing that you're ashamed about, the thing that you're fearful. If people knew this about me, that would mean that X, Y, and Z. That would mean that I'm not allowed in the group. That would mean that I'm whatever. It's all lies, but like you convince yourself of this lie, and you are in a prison until you say that lie, at least to yourself and then to someone else.
Yeah, that's so true. We make up a lot of lies on our own mind that just keep us trapped. And yeah.
And so I was living in a lie.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in the lie of I'm not normal. And this woman is proving that point because she is making this blog post about me. And I didn't have anyone to discuss that with myself. And I couldn't discuss that with myself because I didn't know meditation existed. So that was the key. I looking back, I wish I understood meditation. I wish I understood that just exactly what I said, that the key to your freedom lies in looking and speaking your insecurities. And that is what you're seeking when you're trying to create a successful blog, podcast, everything. You're trying to find freedom in that process. And that does work to some extent. The fastest way for it to work is for you to say your insecurity. Say the thing that you're uncomfortable with in this moment.
Do you think your reaction to that comment would have been different if you would have known meditation at the time, or would it stayed the same and would have eventually quit?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I can't give you a good answer on that.
Yeah. Well, that in itself is a good answer. So you gave me a good answer. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's looking back on the past and rewriting things. The key is accepting what is, right? The key is that happened, and it couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't. So let us figure out what the best thing to do is in this moment after understanding that the past happened and we can't change it.
Yeah, the present is all that we have right now. It's the only thing we have. The past is, well, we don't know what it is. And the future is just an illusion.
Right. That's exactly right. So being comfortable with yourself in the present means coming to terms with the things that you've done in the past and said in the past.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned the Knicks Vision blog.
Yeah.
Tell us the story of that blog and what it ended up becoming.
Yeah. So when I was 15, I built up the blog in the summer by interviewing a lot of Knicks reporters at the time. Knicks reporters often don't get interviewed themselves because they're the one interviewing the athletes. So I figured I could interview them and I could gain a following by virtue of interviewing them. And so I did. And that was a really fun experience. And at the end of the summer, the Knicks have something called Media Day. Media Day is the time when a bunch of reporters come and they interview the players. And Media Day was during a school day, and I was 15 years old. And my mom and dad initially wouldn't let me go to Media Day because it was during a school day.
Yeah.
And I had a press pass from the New York Knicks organization, and I was excited to go, but my parents said no. And then at the last minute, my mom was like, "You know what? I think this will be a defining moment of your life. I think this will be really important." And she ended up skipping work that day to drive me to media day, and
Wow.
I got the opportunity to interview all of the Knicks players at the time, and it was a really special moment because it solidified for me that I was different in some way, that I was special, that I had something. Because I would show up to media day and the people would say, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" I was like, I looked like maybe 13 years old at 15, and I was absolutely, quote unquote, out of my league. But it built confidence in me that I was different and special in some way, and I'm really grateful for my mom for doing that.
Yeah.
And it was a really special moment.
Yeah, like imagine like a 15-year-old and tons of like 30, like maybe even 40-year-olds. Like they're gonna think like, what's this kid doing here? Like he shouldn't be here. So
Yeah, and some people thought that, and others thought, wow, this is a really cool story.
Yeah.
And they wrote about it themselves in their own
Yeah.
papers. And I think, if you're young and you're doing things that outside the norm, you should, be comfortable with yourself. Like, there's
Yeah.
no room you don't belong in. Just being you gives a different perspective to the world.
how did you actually get the media pass, the media day pass?
I just sent an email to the Knicks PR department with, this is my stats. This is how many people come to my blog, and I'd love a media day pass.
How do you think, since they were written interviews, do you think that kind of prepared you or helped you anyway for what you're doing now?
Yeah, I've always found it really easy to interview people. Like, that's common throughout my life, is like, I just find that to be the easiest form of creating, easiest form of being, easiest for me to do. So,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, it's amazing that you found that interviewing was something that you liked a lot and was easy for you at such a young age. A lot of people find it till they're who knows how many years old.
Yeah, and I think it's easier to say that looking back. Like, obviously, I'm interviewing people
Yeah,
every day.
yeah.
And there were moments in my early 20s where I was like, what am I good at? What am I here to do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I don't know. Like, it's easy to say in this moment.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
like interviewing, it's so obvious. But it didn't feel obvious to me in my
It
early
wasn't.
20s.
Mm-hmm. Do you think at that point, did you see yourself continuing Nick's vision until like as a full-time job? Or how did you see yourself, evolving with Nick's vision?
Yeah, Nick's vision was an interesting journey. I think I did that for a year and a half. And then I started applying to colleges, and I didn't really have the same passion for it, especially because the NBA went into lockdown and they stopped playing. And so I was less interested in keeping up with everything that was going on around the league at the time.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing the blog then, and I felt like, all right, that was an interesting chapter. I'm grateful for it. And like, let's be a regular college kid again, or let's be a normal student like most people are.
What was normal for you then? Like, what did you consider normal?
Just going to class, making school my priority, making just instead of the online world being my priority, making school the thing that was interesting to me, or so that's what I viewed as normal then.
And why was like being normal so important to you? Was it because of the comment, or was there another reason why?
I think it's because that's what my parents validated and thought was most important.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they didn't say that explicitly, they definitely said it implicitly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's probably why.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's talk about Gary V.
Mm-hmm.
So, your parents didn't let you go to Gary V book signing because it was a school night, and Gary V personally called your mom. How was that experience?
Yeah, so it was February 2011, I believe, and I wanted to go to Gary V's book signing for his second book, and it was a cool experience to go to, but I couldn't go because it was a school night, like you said.
Yeah.
And I told my mom that, and she said, "Okay, like it sucks for you, basically." And then I tweet to Gary V and I say, "At Gary V, I'd love to come to your book signing, but I can't. It's a school night. Hope it's an amazing experience." And he immediately DMs me and he says, "What's your mom's number?" and I give my mom's number to him, and I'm freaking out inside. Like, I can only imagine what my 15-year-old self is thinking when Gary V, who's probably got 1 million followers on Twitter in 2011, is tweeting at me or DMing me, and I'm like, this is the coolest experience of my life. Like, what is happening right now? And
your mind was going crazy.
Yeah, my mind was going crazy, and it was just a special moment. And I give him my mom's number. My mom doesn't answer, but he leaves her a voicemail saying, like, your son will get more value from the book signing than he will from doing his homework tonight. And I ended up, my mom allowed me to go to the book signing, drove me there as well. God bless her heart.
Yeah.
So it's very special.
Yeah. How much time after did your mom see the voicemail?
It must have been within the hour or 30 minutes.
Yeah. That's like an amazing move from Gary Vee to do that. That's like, to do that to a random kid he doesn't even know. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if he'd been following me before because he was a fan of the Knicks, and so he saw me and saw my account and was familiar with my tweets because I was also interested in his content. So I don't know how much all of that played into it, but yeah, I was really humbled and touched by that, and it really was important for me to stay with that idea of just doing kind things for people with no expectation or no quote unquote reason to do it. I think that was the big lesson I took away from it. Yeah.
And around 11 years later, he came on your podcast because of that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What were you like feeling when he came on your podcast again? Was there like a sense that, wow, 15-year-old me is like proud, or how did it feel?
Totally. I mean, he came on my podcast completely unrelated to that story and situation. He came on my podcast because I wrote an article about him when I was 13. And I just started the podcast, and then he ended up agreeing to come on because I made him a list of my dream guests. And he was one of my dream guests, and people told him that he should come on the show, and it was a really special moment. And then to tell him that story afterwards was very impactful. And so, yeah, it was a special, special moment when he came back on the show, and I'm really grateful for him for doing that.
Did he remember?
You could see a look on his face that he did. I told him the story to start the podcast.
Yeah.
And you could see that there was some part of him that he was like, "Oh my God, you're that kid," and
his face light up.
Yeah, so you could see that in that episode.
That's amazing. Yeah, he probably made the connection in his mind, and he was like, "Whoa, I never thought I'd be talking to him again."
Yeah, it's special. Those full circle moments are really special.
Yeah. So let's go back to you mentioned the Gary Vee blog post. Did you post that blog for Command Your Time, or where did you post the blog?
Yeah, Command Your Time was when I had that blog post, that initial blog post on Gary Vee when I was 13. Because I didn't understand how happy he was.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, more people should know about Gary Vee, was my idea.
So that was the reason for writing the article, more people knowing Gary Vee?
Yeah.
And how did you discover Gary Vee at that time? Because like 2009, 2011, Gary Vee was doing something completely different. I think wine tasting or something. Wine
Library TV is what he was doing at that time. And I would watch these Wine Library TV shows, and I'd like, this guy is charismatic. This guy loves life.
Yeah.
Is he serious? Like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I was just enamored with his content and his energy and his way of being. Yeah. And I wanted more of that. So I wanted more of that in my own life, and I wanted to spread his goodness, his light to more people.
Yeah. I find it amazing that we do things and randomly, like years later, there's like a connection made with it, with what we're doing now. So I noticed that with everything you're doing, you started, you were doing interviews at 15, and now at your age, 10 years later, you're doing the same thing. So kind of like unconsciously, we always go back to the same thing we're always doing. Or that same thing we have in our mind.
It's all connected too.
Yeah.
Like you could really see the connection of Commander Time and Nick's vision to what I'm doing today. And that's what the Surrender Experiment taught me by Michael Singer. The connectedness of every single moment. Your consciousness could be directed at a trillion different places right now. But it's directed right here in this conversation.
Exactly.
So honor it by being here now.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of an important lesson. It took me a long time to learn and was very, very insightful to help me realize that the present moment is very precious. And so if I'm distracted, if I'm thinking about a million different things as I'm doing my day-to-day, I'm losing. Because there's something happening right now that I need to pay attention to.
There's clues everywhere. From the creative act, there's like clues all around us that we just need to be present to notice them.
Yeah. And what happens when we become present to it? Present to the clues.
Exactly.
Life becomes magical.
Life starts acting on its own and doing what it needs to do for you to get where you need to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we were talking about this before we started the interview. What did you learn from the Surrender Experiment? What was the thing you got out of it?
I think it's exactly what I just said, that each moment is perfect the way it is. And 16 billion or 32 billion years got us to this moment right here. So it's perfect. The odds of you being alive, the odds of you breathing, the odds are so infinitesimally small. And just the fact that you're here means that there's something to be grateful for. Means that there's something to appreciate in this moment. And just the connectedness and the awe and wonder that occurs when synchronicities unfold. The touches of God. And they're really touches of God that you say to yourself, how is this possible? How is this possible? It's possible because it's all perfectly orchestrated. It's all being perfectly orchestrated at all times. And if you can surrender to that, to remove your own preferences and let in the preferences of God, let in the preferences of life itself, then your life works better.
Exactly. Yeah. Whatever needs to happen will happen. And everything's connected, like you mentioned. At 15 years old, you would have never known that doing Nick's vision would have led to doing your podcast now and whatever it's become, whatever it's turned into.
Yeah. And it's all perfect.
Yeah.
Even the mess ups are perfect as well.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no mistakes.
That's exactly right.
So, what was your relationship with school? Like you mentioned, you skipped school several times to go to the Nick's Vision Media Day, but overall, what was 15-year-old Danny, 13-year-old Danny thinking about school when he was there?
It wasn't a really enjoyable experience for me because I always had my mind in a different place. I was always distracted. I wasn't willing to surrender to the moment of school often. And I didn't really feel like the school that I was going to was going to lead for me the best possible outcomes in life. And I had a knowing of that since I was 15. When I started Nick's Vision, I was like, I'm going to Media Day. And like, this is clearly means something about myself. And so I was definitely, looking back on it, pretty prideful, pretty I felt in my ego in those moments for sure of I'm talented. I could do this. And so school therefore is insignificant to me. And looking back, it's like, was it really that insignificant? Like, no, it wasn't insignificant. Like, it taught me to read. It taught me to write. It taught me to socialize with other people so I could interview better. And so it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't that, I just didn't enjoy it that much at the time. But looking back on it, it would have been useful to enjoy it more. What about you?
Yeah.
What do you think of school?
So, I was just going to say the thing you said about it teaches us things that we need to know, basically, like to read, to write, to socialize. Those are things that are basic for like our world to be able to learn more and continue our journey. I I think there's too much time wasted. Like, it's 8 hours in a day, which you could do in like maybe 4, maybe even like 2.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. You have to accept it. Like, before, I was like, a year ago, I was going absolutely crazy. Like, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. Like, nothing I'm learning will be helpful for me in like 10 years. Like, what is like the system of equations, like fractions, gonna do with like for podcasting or like making movies in like 10 years? Nothing. That's literally what I was thinking. But it's a phase in life. It needs to happen. So I've learned to accept it. And now, before I would be like so bored, like this all day in class, and now my mood has changed a lot. I've noticed the people around me say that to me ever since like I started like, you know, reading books like Untethered Soul and stuff like that. Yeah. Before, my friends would even say I was always in a bad mood at school.
Yeah.
And now they don't tell me, but like they kind of say like, why are you like walking like that? Because I'm walking like I'm all happy, like whistling. Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely a difference, and you just need to accept what it is. If you accept what it is, if you accept that where you are right now is perfect, life will be so much different.
Yeah, you can be at peace in prison.
Exactly.
Like, you really can be. I feel like in many ways school is a prison of sorts, and you can be at peace in it, even if it's not ideal.
Yeah.
So, good on you, man.
You just need to accept life, and it goes with everything, not only school or prison, you know. It's like, if you are at a place you don't want to be in life, that you think like, accept it. Life is perfect, like you said. Billions of years have come towards this exact moment. It's perfect. You're exactly where you need to be. Exactly where you need to be will be helpful to you in 10 years. So take it as an opportunity to learn. Like, look for the clues.
Yeah, widen the scope. Widen your awareness. Widen your eyes. Because whatever's in front of you can teach you something. And if school is forced to be in front of you, you'll learn something if you are looking for the lesson.
Yeah, and but like basically not only that, but like school also does teach you pretty interesting things like that are like, you know, common knowledge. So like having like conversations. Like imagine like not knowing like basic things about history. Like, yeah, it probably doesn't help you in many other ways than that, but it will help you. Like at one moment you will wonder in your mind, oh, when was the revolution and stuff like that. So it is helpful.
Yeah, truly. I'm with you. Same page.
So what would you say to 13/15-year-old Danny right now? If you could have a conversation with him right now, like a podcast, what question would you ask him? What would you say to him?
I'd say start meditating. It's the most important thing I've ever done in my life, and I separate my life into 2 categories. Before meditating and after meditating. And yeah, maybe I meditated or started meditating at the perfect moment, because I did, which was 24 years old. But I can see so differently how I acted, how I thought, what my life was like before being aware of awareness and after being aware of awareness. So I would tell him to start meditating, and he probably wouldn't listen, and I would say, it's okay, you will one day. So
yeah, that I feel like we get told things, just even like I totally like agree with this, that, you know, I get told things that I get told, it comes in from one ear and goes out from the other.
It's okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's how life is at this age. It's like life is like this at this age, you know. People tell you things from one ear, goes out the other, because you think you're doing everything perfectly. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's okay. It'll all work out.
Exactly. So why do you see meditation as this thing that changed your life? Why do you see it as before and after meditation?
Because I never. It dissolved so much of my ego. It dissolved so many of the ways in which I thought I was right, or I was doing it the right way, or I knew the answers. And it made me realize, no, I didn't. And it made me realize that the thoughts that I was having wasn't myself. Mm-hmm. And I was not connected. I was connected to the thoughts that I was having, but I was not the thoughts that I was having.
No, yeah.
And so that understanding and that realization and living in that realization was so powerful for me that it just got me to be such a kinder, more loving person to myself and the world around me. And it made me more able to be in the present moment, to not want to be anywhere else, but just be right here, right now. And that understanding, that realization was so impactful to me that it changed my life. It uprooted so many of the thoughts, the patterns, the ways of being that I was doing, and it brought new ones to the surface or forefront, or allowed me to change my patterns and beliefs. And so meditation is the most important thing I've ever done to elevate my own consciousness.
And how did you start meditation? Like, what was the thing that...
My friend, Tej Dosa, was always acting in a way that was more loving than most people. And I was like, he talks about business, but he does it in a way that's loving to people. And I was like, okay, there's something to this. And he told me he meditated for 10 years, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And then I tried it one day when I was feeling down, when I was feeling depressed, when I was feeling really upset, unhappy with my circumstances, and I just pretty much never stopped after that. I mean, there were periods where I did stop meditating, but overall, over the last 4.5 years, it's been so much meditation time, and I'm really grateful for that, and for Tej for introducing me to it. And how did I practically start meditating? I literally got a kitchen timer, set it for 20 minutes, and closed my eyes, and just let whatever thoughts come up that were supposed to come up. And that was it. You do that for 90 days, your life will be different. I'm convinced of that.
Why not your phone? Why a kitchen timer? Why do you think you used a kitchen timer, not your phone? Like, do you think things would have been different? Is there a specific reason for it?
I think because it ensures that you have some moment before and after where you're not scrolling or on your phone. And so I like to say that little detail because I think that it's impactful. It was impactful for my journey, where I know if I had finished the meditation and got on my phone right after, it would have, I would have changed the experience.
Yeah, I agree with you. After being in the calm after meditation, just instantly grabbing your phone, it's like letting like thousands of people into your room. Like, it really doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And meditation allows me to better handle the noise that is social media, and better able to handle whatever comes up in my day-to-day.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful for the practice.
Yeah, you said that people who meditate, like with your friend Tej Dosa, that he was like acting like differently. Like I've also noticed that with people who meditate. I noticed it with my dad. He meditates like 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day. And
3 hours a day?
Yeah, 1 hour. I think he's meditating right now. This is like his time to meditate. He meditates like in the morning, like I don't know what time, but like early in the morning. Then after eating, and then before sleeping. So 3 hours.
Wow. And what got him so committed to doing that?
I'm not sure. I think it's because he just wanted to know more of himself, and he started. But yeah.
When did he start doing that?
I think around 20 years ago he started. So it's yeah, a long time. And he's always, been telling me to meditate, and I never listened, like I said before. It went in from one year, went out from the other. But yeah, I'm now getting into the habit of doing it, and I've personally noticed I'm so much more chill when I'm meditating. Like, there's this like peace. I can like chill out, and I'm also, I don't know if you've noticed this too, but like you're so much more creative after, and when you're meditating. I've had like so many amazing ideas, right, because of meditating.
Yeah, when did you start doing it?
The around 2 weeks ago,
Nice.
I started. Then I'm gonna be honest. Last week I didn't do it at all because I was
It's
sick.
okay.
But yeah, this week I did it today actually in the morning. So I'm right now getting back into the. I'm doing 10 minutes a day in the morning, so I'm getting back into the habit.
And this is like a new practice for you. You have never meditated before.
No,
Amazing.
I mean, in quarantine, I was like meditating, but I was just like we would go to a room downstairs and like meditate. But I would
What's
just go to
fake?
sleep.
Oh, gotcha.
I'd just go to sleep.
That's fine.
So I wouldn't consider it meditating, but I had attempted it already before.
Understood. That's really cool
Yeah.
that you're getting started on that practice at such an early age. I'm grateful to have learned about it at 24, and the fact that you have knowledge about it at, in your teens is a really special thing. So yeah, do it, don't do it, but it has impacted my life in a positive way, and seems like it's impacted your dad as well.
Yeah, and you're actually one of the reasons why I started to do it, because my dad obviously told me so many times, but I like listened to him, and I was like, oh yeah, well, one day. But I've noticed for me, I don't do things don't like realize. That's not the right word. But a lot of the things that people tell me, I won't actually do until I get told the second time. So when you started, when I was preparing for your interview like 2 weeks ago, you were constantly talking about meditation. So I was like, oh, I'll see. My dad said it, Danny said it, tons of other people say it, my mom says it. So let's see.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you trusting me and being that nudge that got you over the edge to start for a week. I would say it was hard for me to really see any impact on it until 90 days of doing it every day.
Yeah.
Like going to the gym. Like I would see some change, but I wouldn't really see it. And after 90 days, I realized it made such an impact on me, and it changed my life. When I was stopping at a red light, and I'm looking at the red light, and I'm like, I want this light to be green immediately. Be green, be green. And I knew it wasn't green, and I just laughed at myself because I was like, I want reality to be so different than how it is right now, and I noticed myself do that, and then I can change that.
Yeah.
So yeah, meditation's played a key role in my life, and I'm grateful that you've heard about it and have at least tried it out.
Yeah, like you said, the inner voice talks so much, and one of the ways to calm it is, like you said, meditate.
You find freedom by telling the truth, and when your thoughts go so fast, you can't understand where you're lying to yourself.
Yeah, I agree.
You follow?
Yeah.
Like, you cannot understand what truth is and what false is if you can't even understand that you just had a thought.
Yeah.
So you need to look at the thought, identify it, and figure out, is this true or false? And we lie to ourselves so much that it's hard to even notice that we're lying to ourselves, let alone know that we had a thought to begin with.
Because we're so used to lying to ourselves, we don't know how to tell the difference.
And we're so used to thinking that we are our thoughts to begin with.
Exactly. That's, the most important thing.
Yeah. So identify the thought and then ask yourself, is this true? Is this really true?
Yeah.
That's how you find freedom, which is what we're often seeking. And with making money, having a successful podcast, building our personal brand, trying to impress people in any way, we're just seeking freedom and love in that interaction when it's available for us in every moment. It is available. Freedom and love are available to us in every moment.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to be able to identify our thoughts to get to freedom and love.
Yeah. Everything we need is already inside us. We have already everything we need.
That's right.
It's just discovering it inside ourselves.
That's right.
So, you mentioned this before, college. How was college for you? I saw you mention in another interview, in college you only cared about having fun. And by fun, like partying and stuff like that. So, was the reason for doing that of wanting to be normal, or what was the reason for only wanting to have fun and not, taking it seriously?
Yeah, I think being normal was definitely part of it, as well as the ideas of, in movies and TV shows of what a college experience was like. that were so forefront in my mind and were so present that I created those situations myself.
Yeah.
Like, I just saw college is like Friday Night Lights and Blue Mountain State and like Wedding Crashers and just these movies that are like cult classics.
Project X, yeah.
Yeah. So, wait, what was that?
Project X.
Project X. Yes.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I imagine and associated college with that environment, with that idea.
Yeah.
And I lived that out or tried to live that out to the best of my abilities. And that's what I thought fun was for me at that time.
And how did that go? Did you have fun in the moment? Or...
Yeah, I definitely did have fun in the moment. It definitely was a pleasurable experience, but it wasn't a fulfilling experience.
Yeah.
Because it was just pleasurable.
Two completely different things.
Yeah, they can be for sure.
Yeah,
they can be
exactly.
They can be the same. It's pleasurable for me to record a podcast. It's pleasurable for me to meditate. It's pleasurable for me, and it just depends on where you're coming at it from. But in this specific scenario, it was pleasurable to go to college, and it wasn't actually fulfilling.
So, do you think going to college was the wrong decision, or are you happy you did it?
It was... I didn't understand my own voice. I didn't understand that I had power to create. And I was scared to use my own voice. So I used the voice of my parents, who I assumed knew better. And so the takeaway here is, like, where in your life are you living as the voice of someone else? It's like, it's your life.
Yeah.
It's really life's life. And so it's not the voice of yourself. It's not the voice of a parent. It's not the voice of someone else. It's like, I mean, at the deepest level, it's life. It's God working through you and operating in every moment. But it just like for yourself, it's like, where are you living for someone else? It's like, that's your place where you're not free. And it's easier to do that. It will be more secure and more comfortable and more okay if you do that. But it's not necessarily what is the truth. You're not living your truth. You're living someone else's truth. So, yeah, I think college was an example of living someone else's truth.
Yeah. Most people live lives that they think they're their own, but are affected by everyone around them. And the decisions they make aren't actually like, they are their decisions, but they didn't make them. The people around them made them for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So after college, you didn't want to work for someone, you wanted to work for yourself. Yeah. And that's when you started dropshipping. How did dropshipping start? And why do you think, in the moment, that was the right decision, even though you had another option, which was the Carpe Diem website? Why did you end up choosing dropshipping?
Yeah, because I was asking myself, how can I make the most money in the shortest amount of time? Not how can I do something fulfilling that's going to make my life full of joy and wonder. I wasn't asking how I can trust the flow of life. I was asking how I can make the most money. So that's why I did it, just because I wanted to make the most money in the fastest way possible, because I assumed that would make me happy.
Yeah. And for context, what is the Carpe Diem website for the people that don't know?
Carpe Diem was this idea I had about seizing the day. And Carpe Diem is the phrase, and DM are my initials. And I figured it would be a blog like Command Your Time. And I wasn't comfortable enough with my own voice. I wasn't comfortable enough with myself to own my truth at that time.
Yeah. It all circulates back to writing.
Yeah. And it all circulates back to owning your truth. And not owning your truth, not owning the thing that is deep in your heart, that is uncomfortable for you to share, that might not make sense initially. Like, that is the thing that you are being called to do. Mm-hmm. And that's the hard thing to own often. Mm-hmm. It's like, what is that for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even though you were doing it with like the wrong intentions, to make money as fast as possible. Why do you think, it went well? Why do you think you succeeded doing it?
Yeah, it went well, but I didn't succeed. In that I made money, but I wasn't happy. After a year and a half I lived in San Diego, I was losing my mind, it felt like, because I wasn't living in the truth. I was lying to myself that money was more important than my own inner peace. And my mind called me on it and understood that I was lying. And I stopped doing the job at that time. And I think it worked because if I put my mind to something, it will get done. Like, that's why it worked.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it actually worked at the deepest level, because it didn't. What actually worked was me meditating. That's why I talk about it so much. Yeah.
Also got hired to teach dropshipping.
Yeah.
How was that? How was that experience?
It was an easy job, right? Because I'd learned the skills of dropshipping, but it wasn't fulfilling. It was pleasurable, but not fulfilling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why wasn't it fulfilling? Why do you see it now as not fulfilling?
Well, I would go to do the work every day, and I'd be like, I don't like this. Like, it was not fulfilling in the moment. It was pleasurable to see the money hit my bank account. It was not pleasurable to do the actual work. Yeah. And when it's not pleasurable to do the actual work, that's the sign that it's not for you. Even if it's painful to realize and own and admit to other people, because you've built up an identity being someone or something. So that's kind of why it wasn't fulfilling.
You gotta love what you're doing.
Yeah, because what you're doing is every day. And how it looks to the outside is not necessarily what is making you happy.
Yeah. You can either, please people or do what you love. It's two decisions. Or, it can also be in one. But in most cases,
it could be both. Yeah, absolutely. Like you said. Yeah. It's not one or the other. And it's just important to recognize where you personally are out of alignment. And that's what meditation gave to me. It helped me recognize where I was out of alignment.
What was, the exact... Do you know, like you said, after 9 days you noticed meditation changed your life. But was there, apart from the from the light moment on the road, was there something else that made you realize that, meditation is, changing my life?
The amount of synchronicities that were happening that Michael Singer talks about, where if you listen or watch or read The Surrender Experiment, his book, you're like, how is this real? That would happen to me all the time. Where it didn't, at that moment, it didn't make sense that life was flowing like it was. And so I noticed so many synchronicities at that time when I started meditating a month after. Like, oh my God, this is connected to this and this moment, and this person said this and it's related to that. Like, that would happen all the time. So that's how I knew meditation was quote unquote working in some sense.
Yeah. Do you think they were already there, but you just didn't see them before meditating, or do you think they appeared because of meditation?
It's such a good question, and I don't know the answer to it, but yeah, I don't know. If I had to guess, it's that they're always there, and meditation makes you aware that they're there.
Exactly.
But I don't know if that's true. That's just my current perspective on it.
So let's say you're on the street, you're walking in your own world, running, whatever, and someone comes up to you randomly and says, I want to start meditating. What do I do? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I would say get a kitchen timer. Don't use your phone, and build it as part of your routine in some way that is related to something you already do. So I built it to waking up, because I know I'm waking up every day. So, all right, as soon as I wake up, I'm just going to meditate. And so making it the first thing in the day was helpful to me. And when you associate it with some habit that you already do, it's easier to instill into your life. Yeah,
I agree. That's what I'm doing, and it definitely works. It's definitely a way to keep doing it. Just relate to something else, and then happen.
Yeah. Except when you get sick, then
exactly. except when you get sick.
Which is fine. You don't have to meditate every day.
Exactly. So you've done several, like detoxes without technology.
Mm-hmm.
You did one before starting the podcast, a couple of months before starting the podcast, and then one, when you were doing the podcast. Which one impacted you most and why?
I think the first one, because it gave me a clear direction of where to go. You know those moments where it's so obvious to you what you need to do to be successful? Mm-hmm. That was one of those moments the first time. The second time I felt equal amount of clarity, but I didn't feel the knowing and the direct hit of like, this is the obvious next path. And so that's the first time was definitely more impactful than the second time. Mm-hmm. But and both were amazing experiences.
Yeah. And why did you decide to go and do those detoxes?
Because we don't know what it really means to live with everyone else in the world at the same time, because it's never happened before. So I wanted to return more to our natural state. And our natural state is just peaceful and no inputs coming in at the speed that they come in at.
Yeah. And why did you decide to do 4 days? Why not 2 days, 1 day, a week? Was there a reason for it or random?
Random. I just felt like I brought a bunch of books and was just like, like this will work.
So basically, what was your daily routine, when you were in those detoxes? Were you meditating all the time, reading, since you didn't have your phone?
Yeah, it was a lot of meditation. It was walks whenever I felt like it. On the second one, I did runs, some push-ups, some yoga, a lot of reading, a lot of writing and journaling, reviewing old journals. Just basic stuff to make you feel good and be good and live a life full of love and harmony.
Yeah, just being disconnected from technology.
And being as connected to nature and God and life itself.
Exactly. So, you mentioned running. What goes through your mind when you're running? Like, what are you thinking when you're running?
Yeah, I'm just grateful. Great. I mean, I spoke to a grocery attendant, a cashier after the run today, and she's like, "What'd you do today?" And I was like, "I just went for a run." And she's like, "What do you think about on the run?" And I just said, "Just wanted light and love to every person, every being that I see." So that's really what I think about. I plan a lot on my runs as well, podcast episodes and where I want to go and where the future holds and all that. But yeah, just it's good to have. It's like a meditation in nature. Yeah, I think about it while moving.
I was just about to say it's like a running meditation. Your mind is basically most of the time when you're running, you're just like focusing on your breathing, and thoughts just come in. So you just like start noticing them, and yeah,
it's a really wonderful thing, and it's not directly the same as meditation itself, but it's very similar, and it's very helpful for me. So I'm really grateful for that practice.
Yeah, but there are people who do like running meditations and like walking meditations.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I think it's important, for me at least, to have as a habit and to keep in my routine.
Yeah. I agree. Running is something that, at first going to do is kind of lazy to do it, because actually getting up, running, like just thinking about it sometimes. But when you're there, you're like, I'm so glad I did it. Yeah. I'm so glad I'm actually out here and running.
Yeah, it's special. It's a special habit, and one I hope to do for a long time.
Yeah, so you tweeted that running raises your consciousness.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that tweet?
I mean, I just noticed myself become more connected to all things by virtue of me running.
Yeah.
More full of love, more full of peace, more full of joy, more full of kindness. And that's an exciting thing, to realize that habit is responsible for me being all of those things. It also makes you lose weight naturally. Like, I think I've dropped 10 pounds from when I started running. And when you lose weight, it's like fasting almost. You're a more clear channel to hear what God is trying to tell you.
Yeah. You ran a marathon a couple weeks ago. How was that? How did you prepare for that? What was general experience?
Yeah, so I ran 2 marathons in December of 2023. One on December 2nd and one on December 31st. And it was a great experience. It was so much fun, man. I mean, both were transcendent experiences. And I ran them I did the first one because my buddy called me 6 months earlier, and he was like, "Why don't we run in this race?" And I was like, "That's the same marathon that my dad ran in 10 years ago, and my dad ran in one marathon in his life. So like, let's do that." Wow. Like that was a sign, right? That was following the clue, like we were talking about before.
Exactly.
And so that was an amazing marathon. I trained for that, and then December 30th, my buddy texted me, "Do you want to run a marathon tomorrow?" And I was like, "Sure. Like, let's do it." I just run one on December 2nd, so I'm still in great shape from it, and let's do it. And so, yeah, both great experiences, and I'm running my third one on February 18th in Austin, which I'm really excited about.
That's amazing. Are you preparing the same way for that marathon, or is anything changing your preparation?
No, I mean, doing pretty much the same thing. Yeah,
that's amazing. And why did you decide to run the first marathon in the first place? Was it because of the clue of your dad, or was there another reason? Yeah,
it was pretty much that. It was pretty much my dad, and it was pretty much the feeling of like, I think I'm ready to enter this chapter of my life. I always felt like I would do some running later in life, and felt like I was ready.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, I heard you somewhere say that you're running a marathon a month. Is that true, or did I just like make that up somewhere?
You made that up because Matt Choi said that he was doing that.
Ah.
But it's cool. I appreciate you listening to that episode. And that was really fun to record with him. And he ran a marathon a month in 2023. And that's
amazing.
It's amazing, right? Like, how cool is that? And so his last one of 2023, his last marathon a month, I also joined him on.
Would you like to do that? Would you like to run a marathon in a month, or?
It didn't call to me. I think it's important to look at the people you admire and ask, does this call to me or not? And it didn't call to me. If I end up doing it, great. I can't, actually, because today is the last day of the month of January. Tomorrow. So, yeah.
So, let's say you were doing it from February to next February. Would you still do it, or right now it's just a no?
It's a no for me.
All right.
But it's exciting that Matt did it, and I'm happy for him, and I'm grateful to get to experience one of those 12, but it just doesn't call to me.
Why did you decide to do the, Tuesday running men's club? Was there a reason for that? Why you decided to do that?
So my buddy had a run club on Tuesdays, and I would start to attend them, and then he ended up wanting to change to do his run clubs on Monday, and I was attending the ones on Tuesday, and I wanted to keep it going. And so it already had some initial traction, and I just love meeting people who are running and are willing to get up at 7 a.m., which it's funny. I was not one of those people this morning. I slept through my alarm. So it's like, it happens. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's one of my favorite things that happens every week. A 7 a.m. run with amazing people who are excited to get after it just makes me feel so alive and makes me feel so grateful.
What are the type of people that goes in those runs? What are the type of people see?
It's a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who are into where the world is going, the future, some Bitcoin people, some people in marketing, some people in podcasting. It's all different types of people. Anyone's welcome who's a man, and it's just a cool space to have where you can talk about things that you might not necessarily be comfortable talking about with women.
Yeah. Seems like the perfect place for interesting conversations.
It really is. We get coffee after, and it's just like a great energy and great place. And if you attend it, you might be the youngest person who ever would.
Yeah, I have a friend in Austin, so if I ever go visit him, hopefully I'll go.
That would be amazing. 4 miles,
Yeah.
9 to 10 minute pace, or 8 to 10 minute pace, and everyone has a great time, it seems like.
Is it always, the same people going, or is there's always different people?
It's some same, some different, but everyone's welcome,
Yeah. Do a lot of people fly in from like other parts of the country to actually do it, or?
Some people have, which has been really humbling and cool to witness. People from Boston or Buffalo, and some people have made it a stop on their trip if they're already going to Austin. So I'm really honored by that.
It's a Tuesday. What are you doing on a Tuesday, 7 a.m, Jerry? Chances are you're probably gonna be sleeping. So.
Well, I'm sleeping. At least this Tuesday.
Yeah. So what do you lose from going on a run with interesting people?
Yeah, exactly right.
So, let's talk about the podcast. I've been kind of like avoiding podcast questions because you've been in so many other podcasts and that's all they ask about. But, I'm interviewing Danny Miranda, so why not ask some podcast questions?
Sure.
So, very basic question. How did you start your podcast?
I started because I put out on Twitter who wants to talk on the phone, and I would have such amazing conversations with people that I was like, I'd love to record these. And the recorded conversation is just a podcast, and I just started doing them, and I never stopped doing them. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, podcasts are just conversations with interesting people. It's basically like an excuse to talk to like cool people.
Yeah, it's an excuse to learn about the world and what's around you,
Exactly.
and it's so exciting.
And it's fun.
Yeah, so fun.
So, what decisions and life choices you have made do you think made you such a good interviewer and made you the way you are?
Meditating is the most important thing I've done to be a better interviewer or a better conversationalist. The more you know yourself, the better, deeper questions you can ask.
And is that the only reason, or has it helped you in any other ways?
Podcasting has helped me in so many ways. But the ability to be in any room you want to be in, and the ability to feel comfortable in your own body and mind. If you do enough podcasts, you eventually become comfortable with yourself because you've spoken to so many people. You see the similarities. You see how people communicate, and you trust yourself in every moment to communicate in a way that is true to you and appropriate for the moment. And so, that podcasting's helped me so much. And the thing that's made me the best interviewer, or the thing that has allowed me to be a better interviewer, is meditation.
Yeah. That's so cool. This is my first podcast I've done since starting meditation, and I'm definitely a lot more chill since compared to other ones, because from the other ones, like I always have like something underneath like my hands, and I'm just like fidgeting with it. And this one, I've not been doing it, and maybe it's because of that, but it also may be because when people go on your podcast, they say that they open up like they're meditating. So it may be because of that. And how do you get people, to do that for your podcast?
Everything is a boomerang. And so if someone's uncomfortable with themselves, they are signaling out to the other person, I am uncomfortable. So you also take my uncomfortability.
Yeah.
If somebody is comfortable with themselves and present, you are signaling to the other person, I am also present. And you should be present. So I think that's how I get people to open up, is I am present. I am open to the experience of what is happening. And I am also letting the other person know that by how I'm showing up. So the more present you are, the deeper the questions that the other person is receiving, and the deeper the other person can go on themselves, because you are present to the creation of what is happening.
Yeah. And energy is contagious. So what energy you give to someone is energy they'll probably give you back.
Correct. Correct.
So Do you have a routine you do before your podcast? Do you meditate maybe? Do you have a routine?
Yeah, these days I don't. It's not too much, but I used to have this whole, like, I used to meditate or listen to an affirmations track, or there was never any set routine, but and there's no set routine today. But it's just what can I do to get myself into a state that makes me filled with joy and love and freedom and peace and presence. That's what you should be doing. That's what I should be doing.
Exactly. It's different for everyone. Everyone has different ways to do things. So yeah,
that's exactly right.
You were doing 3 podcasts a week, which is amazing. Very impressive. How did you keep finding guests? For 3 podcasts a week for who knows how long?
Yeah, I think that one person led to 3 more people, and it wasn't a matter of finding people. I was just interested in so many people.
Yeah, and sometimes they come to you.
Yeah, and a lot of times they come to you as well. So I appreciate you saying that. And also, like, I'm not doing 3 podcasts a week anymore. And also, that's great.
Yeah.
You don't have to do the things that people are impressed by and things that impressed you at one point as well.
Yeah, it's doing what you feel in the moment, being present and recognizing what your heart or what you desire and just following it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing at least. It's working out well for me.
Yeah. In your opinion, what makes, a good question good?
I think it gives someone a new perspective. Questions that allow people to hear new perspectives come out of their mouth are quote unquote good questions. And how do you get people to answer questions that they've never heard before or they've understood? It's being present to the creation of what's happening.
Exactly.
So meditating. So understanding yourself better. If you can do those things, you can then come from the place of asking questions that hit people at a deeper level.
Being present when you're interviewing is super important. Yeah. Because if you're thinking like, oh, what question am I gonna ask next? You're gonna be like, you're gonna 1, stutter with your words. 2, you're gonna not listen to what the guest is saying. And 3, you're not gonna be present overall. So, being present when you're interviewing is really important. And sometimes the best questions come from just like being present, waiting, and then or a question randomly comes into your mind. So, yeah.
That's exactly right. And it's a skill that people can feel that you've practiced before the interview starts.
Yeah.
Like you can feel if someone's being present with you or they are feeding off answers that you gave them versus scripted questions. Like we could all feel that. And so and that's okay. It's okay to do whatever you're doing. And also to know that there's an ability for all of us to really tap into our intuition, tap into the present moment to create the best thing possible.
Yeah, you can definitely tell when someone's just like not paying attention, just like sitting there, waiting for an answer, moving on. And it's something that, most podcasters do at the beginning, including myself.
Yeah, me too.
But it's after a while you learn and you'll learn how to come up with... I mean, it's obviously good to have some questions written down, do some research. But I think some of the best questions come from like in the moment and actually listening. So yeah, maybe if you're watching this, want to start a podcast, don't completely like script out your podcast. Just have like a couple questions you want to ask, and the rest be present in the moment and see what comes up.
Yeah, trust yourself.
Exactly. Self-confidence.
That's it.
You've interviewed some pretty, insane people like Iman Gadzhi, Gary V, Robert Greene, Tom Bilyeu, Sahil Bloom. What have you learned from interviewing those people?
That they're just people, that they're just humans floating on this rock in space, and they've managed to accumulate more attention than others, but that doesn't make them more valuable as humans. That they just want love and they just want freedom, just like all humans do, no matter if they've acquired zero attention. And and it's cool to learn that they have problems, that they have issues, and to realize that they're still human. That's been the biggest learning.
It's what we were talking before starting. It's like, your favorite people you see behind the screen are just normal people. They have their own lives, do their own thing, and they just, like you said, accumulated a couple million followers, a couple million book sales. So they're no different than you.
Yeah. So I think that's an important point, and the biggest lesson I've learned in all of it is just like people are people are people are people are people. So there's no reason to treat anyone differently, and they're all going to just teach you where you're not free. If you have trouble talking to someone, or you're scared to have this conversation in this way, or you're scared to say something to this person, that just shows you your own limitation and shows you your room for growth.
People are a mirror of ourselves.
Yeah, and a mirror of where we're not free often. Because if we notice something about them that is upsetting to us, or something about them that we are scared by or fearful of, that's showing us where we're not free. The other things we don't even notice about them.
Yeah. That's very true. Most of the time when you dislike a person, it's probably because you see yourself in that person.
Definitely.
So
definitely.
Yeah.
And when you like a person so much, you see that person, you see yourself in that person in some way.
Exactly.
As well.
Yeah. That's so true. It works both ways.
Yeah. And so it's cool to note, and it's cool to just point out it's cool for me to note and point out to myself, because it shows me, by virtue of talking to so many people, I can see where I'm not free. So that's been an exciting journey. Yeah,
you see yourself in these people, and you learn about the person, but you also learn about yourself. So that's something very, cool from podcasting.
Yeah, it's special medium.
Yeah. One of your most recent podcasts was with Mike Posner, which was an amazing podcast, by the way. How was the process of getting him on your podcast?
I think two people connected us at the same time. Just, it was supposed to happen at that time. Like, two people separately were like, introduced us, and that's how it came to be. Yeah,
that's so funny. Like, it's everything that's supposed to happen will happen. You were supposed to interview Mike Posner at the exact time you did. Like, two random people who probably don't even know each other.
Correct.
Connected you with him, which is amazing.
Yeah. And so it was supposed to happen, and it was an amazing episode for me, and it seemed like for him as well, and I'm grateful for the experience, and what a special opportunity. The grocery store clerk that I was telling you about before asked what I do, and said I have a podcast, and she was like, "Oh, I love Mike Posner. I'll definitely check that out." So that's the one I recommended for her to listen to.
Yeah, that's amazing. Did you prepare any differently in the Mike Posner podcast from other podcasts, or was it?
No, I actually, over the past few months, I've stopped preparing as much as I usually have previously, because I've trusted myself more. I've fully embraced the fact that I don't know what the best thing that person's going to say is, and I invited them onto the show for a reason. So just let go and let God.
Yeah, which is, kind of like I don't know if bold maybe is the right word, but like bold thing to do, since some people kind of like know you from always like doing tons of research and knowing. Yeah. Some people know you because of that. That's like the Danny Miranda podcast. Oh, they relate. He does tons of research. Right. So kind of like deciding to do that is like, wow, like kind of bold. Have you noticed any? Yeah, exactly.
I just don't care. I don't care what people think. I care what I think, and I care what's bringing me the most enjoyment and fulfillment in each moment. And so that is shifting the identity of the podcast, identity of myself in the eyes of other people, and being okay with that.
Yeah, that's the most important.
Yes. It never ends. The process of letting go.
Yeah. You mentioned, change in your podcast, and you actually recently did a tweet that you're going through a deep internal shift. I don't know if it's too personal, but if you want, elaborate more on the deep internal shift. What is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a feeling of God within me at all times since like early December, but even before. I mean, I really started feeling it early December, but October, November, really deepening of my relationship with God and understanding of God and seeing the perfectness of every moment. I started listening to like faith music all the time, not because I wanted to, but just because I felt it flowing through me and that it was needed. Like, I just feel connected to all things in a way that I never have before, in a deeper way. Like living the surrender experiment. I see the synchronicities happen every day. I see the connections. What my life is so remarkable and so I'm in awe. I'm in awe at the experience that I'm having on this floating rock in space. And yeah, it's just been a huge shift for me personally. And I'm really grateful to have experienced it.
Yeah, that it's a sign that there's something coming or something, maybe something right that you're doing right now. So everything is going the right way. Well, everything will happen. Will need to happen, but you know what?
Yeah, it's a result of meditating. It's a result of having great friends. It's a result of asking myself, where am I not in a high vibrational state?
Do you think if you were meditating, you wouldn't have noticed that deep internal shift, or is it something that meditation allowed you to see?
I think that by virtue of meditating increases your consciousness. And the more you increase your consciousness, the more you act with love. And the more you act with love, the more you experience God.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You, in the tweet, you mentioned that you're shifting towards coaching.
Yes.
What about coaching is like making you shift towards it?
I realized that people were asking me to coach them every day. People were asking me about relationships they were ending, about their parents dealing with illnesses. I realized every day someone was coming to me with something. So I surrendered to the flow of life and said to myself, okay, if everyone's asking me, it's a sign. And they're all coming to me separately. Like, there's no connection. This is what life is bringing me forth in this moment, to be a coach.
So do you see it as actually being like, a life coach, like actually like, or do you see it just like talking to your friends and like giving them tips, or like how do you see it from your eyes?
I call it freedom coaching because the actual product that I'm delivering to people is freedom from their own limitations. And it's kind of put the podcast in a different perspective, because if we had this conversation that was off the podcast, you would say the truth of what you were feeling in a way you'd be more comfortable to. But it's recorded, so it's hard to do that. And I used to struggle with this myself, of this feeling of like, I wanted to put on a show, put on a front, put on something. And I even did it unconsciously, a character unconsciously. And when you go away from the truth, you are still in the prison. And so coaching allows people to get to the truth. And it allows people to say what is actually on their mind. Of like, I don't like the way my mom is treating me. I don't like my friend. I don't like this situation. I don't like what is going on. And we stuff that down. And when we stuff that down, it has consequences. We're putting on a mask. And so what the coaching does is it allows people to say the truth of what they're feeling and us to diagnose it together. And then to proceed. We're living in truth. And I don't accept anything other than living in truth. And so the podcast creates this feeling of it has to be entertainment, it has to be a show, it has to be something. But the truth is the thing that will set you free. And sometimes when we put on the show, we're avoiding the truth.
Yeah, that's so true, because when you put on a character, you're not actually being yourself. Like, you can be yourself, but you're not being your like authentic self, because just the fact knowing it's recorded, you're like, should I say that? Should I say this? Right. So it not being recorded kind of like sets you free, kind of, and lets you like gives you freedom, like you said, freedom coaching. It gives you
Yes.
freedom to actually express your true self.
And if you're completely comfortable with yourself, it could be the same with you recorded and you not.
Exactly.
But if you're not completely comfortable with yourself, you're going to make a mask in some sense, like I did for so long, about who I actually was. So, yeah.
It's putting on a fake character for the camera, for the video.
Yeah. Which we are trained to do. So
Yeah.
it's like there's no judgment of that. It's like when people take a photo, they're like, smile. So, AKA, act differently than you're acting right now because I want to capture this moment. You were trained to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. And a video even more so. So, I think it's just having compassion for ourselves for that, but also realizing that the podcast or a video isn't necessarily the truest expression of who we are in any given moment if we cannot come to terms with who and how we are lying to ourselves. And that's what freedom coaching is. It's how are we lying to ourselves?
It's basically we've been putting on this like character, like I said, smile since we were born. So putting on this character is like, it's like sleeping to us. We already know how to do it because we do it unconsciously. Like with people you don't know, you put on this character to for them to like you, kind of.
Yeah.
And when you're with people you're comfortable with, most of the time, like your family, your best friends, you're like, you don't care. You're your true, authentic self. So it's something that's, in us that we do, but something that can be completely removed. Something that we got conditioned to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So is your coaching basically setting people free from that character, or?
Yes. Setting people free from the character they've created and the constraints that they are believing that are true, that are just limitations. That's
and
what
how
the
do
coach is.
how do you help people get there?
By asking them questions that uncover the truth that they are not willing to look at or accept within themselves, and hold them in the space of compassion and love for the thing that they're not willing to accept within themselves.
So it's kind of like an interview, maybe.
It's definitely related. It's definitely related to interviewing because I've been coaching for the past 3.5 years, but only recently started getting paid for it. And the coaching now is better because it's not recorded. So, yeah, it's similar. It's not the same, but it's similar.
Yeah, so is the coaching like a product that people pay you to coach them actually?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's amazing. I enjoy doing it. And it's seemingly helping a lot of people become more free and live in a more true state. Like, what more can I ask for?
Yeah, it's a sign that it's working if more people are constantly asking you to do it for them.
Yes.
So.
And that the people who are being done for are enjoying the experience tremendously, which I'm grateful they are. So.
Yeah. So, in the tweet of the deep internal shift, you said that you're kind of like maybe shifting away towards podcasting, and that you may publish more podcasts in the future. How often is May?
I don't
How often
know.
is May?
I don't know. I can't give you a good answer on that. I just want to go towards the truth. The truth sets you free.
Wow. Yeah. So it's whenever you feel like it.
Yeah, whenever I feel like it. Well, I might have a schedule in the future. I might come back with one a week or 2 a week or 3 a week in the future if I get the systems down. But I don't know. I don't have a good answer right now.
I think it's really good like it is because each podcast will be more authentic. It's not like it's forced each week you have to record it. It's like it will be more authentic because you actually want to be there. Like maybe like when it was like 3 times a week you wanted to be there, but now that it's like whenever you want, it's even more authentic and you actually want to be there. So I think it's going to be a good thing for the viewers because they're going to enjoy each podcast more. It's going to feel more authentic.
Yeah, I think so.
So, do you still want to sell Madison Square Garden for a live podcast, or
I'm not really attached to the idea as much anymore. Yeah, it was a fun dream, and I've let it go. And
Yeah.
I might come back at some time. And I'm completely content with that if it does.
Consider like the men's retreat you're doing, that you tweeted about. Do you consider that to be like the coaching, but just in person at a larger scale, or?
Yeah, just a group, just with a group.
Yeah. So it's basically coaching with a group, or is there another reason, another meaning?
Yeah, it's like I was doing the runs, and it was exciting to do the runs. And I was like, okay, what would the paid version of this look like that would also be more intentional with the coaching that I'm doing every day? How can I add that into the mix? So that's kind of why I decided to do the retreat, because it's just an extension of what I'm already doing.
Yeah. I hope the retreat goes well.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
So now I have tons of like really random questions.
Okay.
I lined up. So before, I don't know if you noticed, but they were more like structured kind of, but not really. And now it's just like completely random. So
amazing.
Tell us the story of Stephen Bartlett inviting you on his podcast as an audience member.
Yeah, so he didn't actually invite me. I took his Google Calendar request as an invitation. I really wanted to go. I talked about this, I think, in the episode with Tej Dosa. I wanted to go so badly. I never ended up going. I didn't listen to the voice. I didn't listen to my own voice. I listened to my parents' voice of what was rational and what made sense.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good reminder to listen to the voice, because he invited me through like in a Google Calendar invite, and I never ended up actually going because I got scared and I didn't listen to my own voice.
Did he like randomly send you a calendar invite, or how was that?
Yeah, his assistant or someone on his team randomly sent me a calendar invite. So
without context, without like email
no context.
That's so funny. So like they didn't even like tell you like what it was for. They just like one day you randomly checked your email and it was like calendar invite from Stephen Bartlett.
Correct.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to this, and then other voices came into my head that was like, no, this is a bad idea. Yeah. No, you should. So I didn't. But I wish I did. Listen to the voice. Listen to the voice.
That's so funny. Let's say you could have a dinner with 5 random people, dead or alive. Who would they be?
Jesus Christ, Buddha, Eckhart Tolle, Michael Singer, and Ram Dass.
Why? Why those people?
I think those people have operated at the highest or close to the highest levels of consciousness of any human to ever have. Mm-hmm. And I think that is super cool, and I'd like to learn from them. Very
interesting table. I think everyone in that table will probably get along. I think they'll all like become very like good friends.
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone would be pretty happy at that table. It'd be a pretty peaceful table and pretty loving table.
Yeah. The least chaotic table you could ever imagine.
We're optimizing for peace out here.
Exactly, yeah. You can tell. Yeah. What's on your bucket list? What are some things that are on there?
Run the Austin Marathon. Get married. Have children. Continue elevating the consciousness of the world to the best of my abilities. Expanding love and freedom. And just making every day a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm. And how do you plan to do those? Is there like, are you going to let things happen, let the flow of life take you there?
Yes.
Or do you have like a,
let the flow of life take me there. You know
that's
that.
the best way. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the way. Life knows the way.
Yeah, life knows the way.
You can't predict half the amazing stuff that happens in your life. You cannot possibly predict it. So, like, what am I trying to do, trying to create the conditions that are going to make amazing things happen? I don't know as well as life knows. I don't know as well as God knows. I
exactly.
Don't.
Life knows way better than you. So, let it decide. Why try to interfere?
Yeah. Surrender.
All right. So, very similar to the bucket list question. And I think I know the answer for this question, but I'm asking anyway. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Surrendering to the present moment to the best of my ability. Likely somewhere meditating, hopefully with wife and children. Yeah. Just being present to the creation of life.
The answer I expected. Surrendering to life.
I'm a simple man, Nico. I'm a simple man. Like,
exactly.
I found the way that works for me, and I will continue living it to the best of my abilities.
Yeah, I mean, if it works, why fix it? So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
what are some of your favorite movies?
I've never been into movies. Like, it never really hit me. But The Matrix was one that I watched in the last year that I enjoyed a lot. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of how I felt before meditating versus after meditating. I plugged into the Matrix before. I liked Remember the Titans a lot. It's like a football movie growing up. Mm-hmm. But I don't really watch too many movies these days. I don't, it's just not interesting to me. But
continue.
But I'm. It's just not for me. One of those things that hasn't really hit me at a deep level. I just followed the call of like, exactly. Oh wow, is this exciting? Like, I follow that.
Yeah. And what about books? What are some of your favorite books?
Well, you already mentioned A New Earth and The Surrender Experiment. I'm looking over my bookshelf right now. I'm like, what do I got here? What am I reading? Maps of Consciousness is one that I haven't talked about a lot, but that's by David Hawkins. And I really enjoyed that. It helped open up a lot for me. What else do I enjoy as books? The book that came to mind just now was Russ's book. It's All in Your Head. I really enjoyed that one as well. But we could go hours on books and just straight book talk. But
yeah,
those are a few that come to mind.
In one of your videos, you have Thinking Like a Monk, clear in the background. What do you think of that book? Because I think it's my favorite book. So what do you think of it?
Amazing. I really enjoyed it when I read it. It would help put me in a good state, and I really loved the thoughts and reflections by Jay Shetty. So it's amazing.
Jay Shetty is amazing.
Yeah. Super talented guy.
Yeah, definitely. What's one day you could relive? Or would you prefer to stay in the present moment?
The marathon was a pretty cool day. Like the first marathon and the second one were awesome days.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I would say. That's what comes to mind. I mean, the days that I'm having recently are out of this world. So, yeah, every day. Every day is a masterpiece, my friend.
Yeah. The present moment.
Yeah. Powerful.
Who are some of your heroes?
I would say the people I mentioned before, the people I want to have dinner with. Mm-hmm. Anyone who is committed to living a life of surrender to God and surrender to the flow of everything, I'm inspired by them. Peter Crone is someone I didn't mention. I'm inspired by him. Tej Dosa, Mother Teresa, just people who are flowing with life and love and light.
Let's say randomly, out of nowhere, out of life's random gifts, you look at your door and you see a check of $1 billion. What are you doing with your life? Are you continue doing what you're doing? Are you doing something new?
Yeah.
What's the move?
I would figure out how do I build media to expand love and freedom. That's kind of what I would focus on, as well as, how do I use that $1 billion to get into the minds of the most powerful people that I can imagine to expand their own love and freedom as well, which might be through coaching or retreats or whatever it may be. But that's what I would try to figure out to do with that money.
I've been noticing love and freedom is a huge theme.
That's it. That's what we're all seeking on this floating rock. That's what I'm seeking on this floating rock in space. And when you find that, you just want to give that to other people. And you realize that the traditional ways that people find it are not necessarily the actual path to what you need.
So if you want to discover the path, maybe be coached by Danny.
Or start meditating. Or start
meditating. Yeah. So, Danny, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really means a lot. On your podcast, you leave the audience with a challenge. You ask the guest to leave the audience with a challenge. So, let's flip the switch. What's the challenge you leave the audience currently watching with?
Yeah, I would say, where are you lying to yourself? Try to identify one place. And we're all lying to ourselves in some way. Right? Like for me, I am lying to myself that I was going to wake up this morning when my alarm hit, and I was going to lead the run club that I've hosted. Right? Like that was a lie that I told myself last night and I had to live with today. And so what do you do when you lie? Right? You own the lie and you say, okay, this is what happened. I will take steps. I'll set 2 alarms next time. Right? I will get more rest on the weekend. And I will own what happened, because it's important to note we're all lying to ourselves somewhere, and we likely are all lying to ourselves somewhere. And the less you are lying to yourself, the more freedom you have. So
yes, exactly. So go ahead.
Figure out where you're lying to yourself.
Go ask yourself that question if you're watching this and see where it leads you.
Yeah. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Danny, once again for coming on the podcast. Is there anything you want to promote?
I would promote yourself. Promote yourself. Like, figure out how you can listen to your own voice and figure out how you can really tap into you. Because at the end of the day, you've got the answers. You've got the keys within you. And do you have the courage to start looking? Do you have the courage to start spending time with yourself? That's what meditation is. Do you have the courage to really tap in to the infinite flow of life and tap into the present moment? Like, that's really what it's all about, and that's what I'm here to stand for and appreciate and share. So yeah, that's what I want to promote. You.
Exactly. The answers you need are already in you. You just need to discover them.
That's right. Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, and I'll see you watching this next episode of the Nicocast.